And welcome. It's the Joel Com Show, and we are live on blab.im. If you're listening in the podcast version later, then you're only hearing, but you know what they say, seeing is believing. And what I'm seeing in front of me now is one of my oldest friends in the internet marketing realm, a guy who's been doing this forever and a day, who's got a really interesting stories, a really funny background before he cracked the code on making money online. And now he's an internet millionaire, and he lives somewhere over in the East Coast of North Carolina. And I want to welcome Armin Morin. What's up, buddy?
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate you having me on. This is, I just want to announce to everyone, this is my very first blab. This is it. Well, very first one ever. I'm now a deflowered blab virgin.
Yes, you were a virgin blabber, and now
you were my first.
You never forget your first either. I've actually had the opportunity to bring a lot of people to blab because I caught on to it a little over 3 months ago, and I think people are seeing the power of it. And what I just did, just an FYI, is as a host, I have the ability to go on the record and start recording whenever I want. So I started the recording, and when the blab is over, it's going to give me the option to shoot it right up to YouTube, and then it's going to send me a link to download both the MP3 and the MP4 so we can repurpose this content, both audio and video.
So now with, here's something really interesting is that, I don't know about you, but I know you probably see this probably more than I do, but don't you think that the internet is becoming more and more a instant society, probably more so than it ever has been in history?
Yeah, totally. We want what we want. We want it on demand, and we want to be empowered with the tools that let us accomplish what we want to do faster, cheaper, more effectively.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think about it. You got Blab, you have Slack, which is something I've been playing around with a lot lately. In fact, I've been even thinking about using Slack for membership sites.
Really? I've been invited to a couple myself, and I'm finding it interesting as well. So we're going to talk about that. And what we're going to do here, gang, is I want everybody first to show Armin the power of the Tell a Little Bird button that's right up there. Everybody go ahead and tell a little bird. That's how we let the Twitter audience know we're live. Armin, you can click that too, and you'll see what happens is it actually pulls a thumbnail of us live and puts it into your tweet, which is pretty cool.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you everybody for sharing. I know these midday shows are a little different. Those of you that are working and you're busy, but I promise you it's going to be worth it because Armin is going to drop some serious knowledge bombs, and I think you're going to walk away with some great content, and you're going to be inspired. So what we'll do is we'll talk for a little bit, Armin, and then I'm going to open up the seats for those that want to come on in and join and ask you questions or make comments, and that's a pretty cool feature. Well, let's set the Wayback Machine.
Okay.
Way back, because
way back.
One of my favorite parts of your story is how you started as a salesman.
It was kind of interesting. I'll give you guys the short version. I was going to school to become I wanted to become a stockbroker, believe it or not. I was going to become a stockbroker, and I wanted to work on Wall Street, the whole works. And so I went to college for that. And after this first summer of college, I read an ad in the newspaper. It said, college program, college students needed, make up to $30,000 over the summer. And I'm like, oh, this sounds a whole lot better than working at McDonald's. So I answered that in the paper, and I go with the girlfriend I had at the time, and we drive like 15 miles down the road to Kingston, New York. And all of a sudden, I pull up to this building, and no lie, there is like a 20-foot vacuum cleaner on the top of this building. And I'm like, there is no way I am going in there. I am not selling vacuum cleaners. I will do anything. I am not selling that. She says, you're going in there. I said, no, I'm not. So anyway, I went in.
Of course you did.
She won. And I talked to the guy, and I met, honest to God, the most brilliant salesperson ever in the world. And to this day, I'm going to tell you, I've met a lot of great salespeople, but no one even compares to this person. His name was Lenny Epstein. And Lenny convinced me within seconds that this is the job. Yeah, he was awesome. He was this guy who was a pharmacist that came up from Brooklyn, and he ended up working at Electrolux. And I didn't know at the time, but this was the #1 office in the #1 region in the world.
So you had the opportunity to sit under one of the greatest.
Not just one, but remember, it was the #1 office. It was
Right.
the #1 region. So his boss was Peter Fabiano, which actually worked in the same office. So I had the two best guys in the world telling me basically what to do.
You had the Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier of vacuum cleaners.
I did at that time. But here's the funny part. So I agree. I'm going to come in. Now, this is Sunday. I went in on a Sunday to talk to this guy. And he says, well, I need you to come in tomorrow. And here's a piece of paper. And I want you to memorize this. So I am naive. I'm going to tell you guys right now. You may not know this, but I'm the most naive person ever. And I follow instructions to a T, especially when I was younger. So he told me to memorize the paper. So I went home and I memorized the paper. But he also told me to come in with a tie. Remember, this is Sunday in a little tiny town called New Paltz, New York at that time. No stores are open. They're all shut down. Okay. So the only store that's open is a thrift store. And so I walk in, and believe it or not, the only ties that they had, in fact, the only tie, not ties, not plural, tie, one tie, was this red bow tie. I went in the next day wearing this red bow tie. I had a white shirt, a red bow tie, and that was it.
Perfect.
And then and that's how I started. But the problem is that when I walked in the next day, no one was in the office. This is the funny part. They had all won a trip, and they didn't announce it to me, that they had all won a trip to Hawaii. So they were gone for a week and a half. And there I was with instructions that says, go out and knock on some doors and introduce yourself to some people and ask them if they need any bags. That was my training. I had memorized the script.
Go get them.
Go out and but here was the coolest part though. Out of all the things I did, selling vacuum cleaners, and I worked for Electrolux, I worked for Kirby. The coolest part ever was that very first day. And here's the reason why. I learned the biggest lesson on that first day. And here's what happened. I drove around for about 3 hours looking for the perfect neighborhood until I realized and came to the conclusion that there was no such thing as the perfect neighborhood. And then what happened was I went out and I finally got out of my car, and I realized, and I've told this story again and again, that there was basically 4 inches that was preventing me from succeeding. And that was basically the thickness of my car door. I had to get through that car door before I could do anything else. And so I went outside and I knocked on the first person's door. I said, hi, my name's Armin from Electrolux. And this is what I said, right? I knew what they told me to say, but this is what I said. I said, hi, my name is Armin from Electrolux, and I'm here to deliver your bags, right? Just like that. And
assuming the sale.
And this lady says, I didn't order any bags, but I do need some, just like that. And so I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So I went to the next house. I did the same thing. So I went to like 3 houses. Now think about this though. Every bag, this is how my mind was working at the time. Every pack of bags that I sold made me $7. Now, remember, this was back in 1989 actually. So 1989. So $7 an hour would have been awesome. Mm-hmm. But I was getting like $20 an hour just delivering these bags. And I thought, this is the greatest thing. And I never even sold the machine. So it was the greatest thing in the world that I figured out. And then I had this other brilliant idea. You guys are going to like this, because I figured out, why sell 1-to-1 when I could sell 1-to-many? So the next day I went out, I was like, I don't want to knock on these doors. So what I did was I figured out, where would people that had vacuum cleaners, where would they hang out? So I went inside to hair salons, and I walked into the hair salon, and I just held up a package of bags saying, hey, my name's Armin. I'm from Electrolux. I'm here to deliver the bags. Now, there's like 20 women in there that there's a chance that one of them has an Electrolux. Well, it turns out that I wouldn't only sell one. It'd be like 2 or 3 people would say, well, I didn't order any, but while you're here, I do need some bags. Mm-hmm. And so I went around to every hair salon in the whole town.
Talking to all the ladies that needed to vacuum up their place.
And I probably, the thing is, I was 19 years old, and I probably looked like I was probably 15.
Yeah.
So I looked probably as innocent as you possibly could. And again, still wearing this bow tie because
you may as well have been selling Girl Scout cookies, and they would.
Yeah, it's like, please, sir, can I have some more?
Right. It's kind of funny. You said the only thing between you and the sale was the 4 inches of your car door, and really, that means the only thing between you and the sale was the inch right here, right? Correct. Your cranium. Because it's all just a way of thinking. And I love, one of the things I enjoy about stories like yours and so many of our peers is that we didn't know what to do. So we did something, and then we're like, wow, hey, that actually worked.
Yeah. But then you figured out you did more of it. Here's the funny thing. I was teaching a class this past weekend with some people at my house. And one of the things I said is that the things that you tend to figure out that actually work are the things that you typically stop doing. Just think about this for 1 second. I mean, we are creatures of habit in one way, where we try to find something that works, and we do it for a while and we get success, and we may even 20, 30, 40 years later tell stories about it, right? But the things that got us to where we are, many times we find something a little bit better, but we stop doing the original idea, or we even forget about it. We just stop doing it. And so a lot of times it's back to, you've heard the phrase going back to basics. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of times what we have to do in order to kind of regroup in order for us to move forward.
Oh, so for me, that means I'm going to build a website.
You might.
That's where it started here. Now, just for those of you joining, if you've not heard of Armin before, Armin is one of the superstars of the internet marketing world. He's incredibly bright, willing to take risks, which I think is one of the things that makes him such a success. We like to talk about all the cool things that have happened, but they don't always work out the way we think they will, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I've, now as my business grew, my mistakes just cost me a boatload of money more. I remember a single year where I probably, I started trying to start a business. I pumped in $100,000 into it. Nothing happened. The person I was dealing with, it just went away. I started another business the same year. Again, another $100,000 didn't work. And you may be thinking, oh, well, it doesn't matter. He's making X amount of dollars. $100,000 hurts no matter who you are.
Always.
And it hurts to explain that to my wife that I just pissed away $100,000.
Right. Do you find, I discovered that when I invest that kind of money in something, and then I have a choice, okay, do I keep feeding the beast or do I pull the plug? I've discovered that the moment I pull the plug, there's a huge relief and I'm able to move on. Have you encountered the same thing?
Absolutely. I mean, once you make that decision, it's done. You have that relief. You have that sense of relief knowing I'm not going to move forward anymore in that direction. And I think that's a lot of times what happens with no matter what. Maybe it's having a business and having to let a person go, as an example. Mm-hmm. That's a difficult decision, no matter who you are, no matter how long you've known them, if you've just known them recently or you had them working for you for years. Once you make that decision, though, it's easier. And a lot of times it's making the decision, oddly enough, to succeed, that a lot of time the weight is removed and it forces you. One of the things you said a few moments ago was just do something to move forward. And a lot of times, when I'm stuck and I can't do anything or whatever it may be, I just do something, do something to move forward with it.
Well, and I like that you don't stop, okay, so let's just brag for just a moment. I'm not a big fan of, hey, I'm going to tell you about my big house and fancy car and all that, but just to set the stage, in the, 12 years you've been doing this, would you say? 12, 13
Internet
years?
Marketing?
Yeah.
This is my 19th year.
19th. Okay. So we go both.
It'll be 20, literally, dude, within a couple of months, it'll be 20 years.
20 years. Time. We're in the 20-year club. Boom. Yes. Okay, how many millions would you say?
Wait, let me do that again. My ring looks really cool like that.
how many millions? I mean, I don't want to turn it into a big brag fest, but how many millions do you think you've made?
I stopped counting at 100 million.
Okay, so I think that's impressive right there. You've got this massive house of how many thousand square foot?
It's like 17,500 square.
It's this huge estate, and you work out of your home, and you've got like a mini conference center there.
Yeah. In fact, on the other side of this wall in back of me, there's a conference room that'll hold roughly around 50, maybe up to 60, but 50 comfortable people in my house. I just did a conference this past weekend with a group of my students coming in for the weekend.
Have you ever done a Periscope or another video that shows people around your home?
I haven't, but I've thought about that so many times, is like starting at the front.
Mhm.
You know what I kept looking for? You ever see those reality TV shows that have like the waist belt? It's typically like those ghost, ones that have like it kind of, it's like on your belt, and it just kind of comes up. I want to get one of those where I can like walk backwards through my house. You know what I mean? So
So I know there's somebody here who must know film that can tell you what that's called, but you can probably order one of those easily.
Called a coat hanger.
What I would do, it's like a steady cam thing. What I would do is I would promote it, a week in advance, and tell people you're going to be giving a tour of your 17,000 square foot, home and conference center and all that. And I think that would encourage a lot of people that are thinking about coming to your training once they actually see.
Well, you know what's funny is that for the first 3 months, every once in a while, I'd find a new room. I would actually find a room or a part of the house that, what is this place? I've never been in here before. So it was actually kind of funny. I thought it was.
You can get lost in your house. One of these days, I'm going to make it out there. I know we've talked about it, and I just can't find any other compelling reason to come to North Carolina.
But a lot of people think, well, why do you need a house that big? You don't. Honestly, you don't. But there's a couple different reasons. Number one, for me, it's not a symbol for anybody else. I'm just going to tell you guys right now. It has nothing to do with me being able to say this. I say it, and I say it all the time jokingly. But for me, it is this idea of what I've always wanted. This is, for me, a symbol to me of my success. I always wanted a Rolex watch. I got a Rolex watch. I don't know where it is. I have no idea where it is, but I've got one, right? So it was a symbol. I always wanted a BMW. I had one. I gave it away. I gave it away to one of my contests that I did for my students, and I gave it away to one of my students. But the house for me is where I live. It's not only where I live, it's where I work. For me, it's a comfortable environment. For me, the space makes me feel comfortable. It may not make other people comfortable. Now, let me give you an example, the exact opposite of this. My mom, my mom passed away a couple years ago, but she always felt uncomfortable in my house, in my houses that I've had. It's like she just didn't feel right she had this thing about it's too much. And it was, that's just the way she was. And, it's okay. But
each their own.
Yeah. And that was just her. But for me, I live here. I want to be comfortable. And, maybe this will be the last place I have. It was kind of interesting, though, as I built my businesses. My first home that we had was 1,800 square feet. The second house we had was 4,200 square feet. The third house was almost 8,000 square feet. And so every time I upgraded my house, I more than doubled the square footage of my houses as we did that.
So the next one's 34,000, and then you could just buy a state.
Yeah, then I'm just buying part of the town.
Right, Ormanville. I'm going the opposite way. I've gone from a 6,000 square foot home to 2,500, and now I've like gotten rid of so much of my stuff. And but I'm more transient. You're married and you're settled, and I'm single here in Denver, and so who knows?
Well, one of the things that we thought about, we think about this idea of if there is such a thing as retirement, that we thought about. Okay, well, we could just buy like these condos in different places around places we like, that we actually like to hang out and spend time with. So that we thought about doing something like that in the future.
Do you still have the bow tie, the red bow tie?
I don't actually. No.
Maybe you can find one like that. I think it'd be really kind of a back to your roots when you give a presentation and tell a story about how you got started. If you actually had a bow tie like that,
looking like Malcolm X or something, with the bow tie.
Filipino power, a little different. Right. So before I open it up, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now that you're most excited about.
We just did something just recently that I'm really excited about. There's two things that we're really excited about. Number one is we're doing online streaming seminars, which is really kind of cool. We've been doing that for 2 years, and I really, really like that. But it's probably the most exciting thing that has happened to me in 5 years has been our live events. We started doing live events again, multi-speaker events, and it's called Learn University. And it went off. It was amazing. There's certain times where you feel at home. I don't know about you, but this is, for me, it was like a homecoming where it's like I'm back on the stage. Not that, I mean, I've been on a lot of stages in the last 5 years, but since I closed down the big seminar, since I decided I wasn't going to do another big seminar, when I stepped on that stage at Learn University, it was like I didn't even miss a beat. It was just like, this is where I should be. This is where I belong. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And
it's like reconnecting with an old friend. Doesn't matter how many years have passed.
It was. And I did, because many of our friends, some of the people like Kurt Christensen, I haven't seen forever, was there. So many different people were just hanging out. Ty Cohen and Greg Caesar and everything else. And it was just one of those things that just felt so natural, but brought back nostalgia in one aspect and had this whole new twist with something new. And I honestly think that we found a place that exists in the seminar world that we're not competing with everybody else. Mm-hmm. And, there's the bigger events, and there's, Ryan Dice has, this massive mega, church thing going on, really going on. It's like, thousands of people and everything else. And it works for him. And that's fantastic. And then there's
Church of Traffic and Conversion.
And then there's this other people doing different types of events. And I think we found a place where what we're doing is different. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I'm sorry I didn't get to come, but I don't regret, because I was with my kids on vacation. But next time I'm there. Have you set a date for the next one?
I have, and it's April 22nd, 23rd, 24th. 22nd, 23rd, and 4th. And I know you're going to be there because I've already asked you to speak at it.
Yes, please.
And he cornered me. He brings me up to his room to do he said he was going to do a Periscope with him. I made sure I left the door open a little bit, and I didn't let him shut the door all the way.
Never scope behind closed doors.
That's right. But we talked about it. And so Joel's going to be speaking out at the next event, and we're still firming up some of the other speakers, but it's going to be a great event.
Fantastic. All right. Well, here's what I'm going to do while we continue talking. I have the power to unlock the seats. And if you want to ask Armand anything about whatever he's spoken about already, about his events, about his training, about making money with your business, his business acumen goes way beyond the internet. As a marketer, he's very creative. So if you have a question, feel free to jump in and we'll let you in ask that. And while we're talking about creative, there was something that you did, I want to say 7-8 years ago, maybe even more, where you wanted to bring forward another aspect of your creative side, because you're a big country music fan.
I am. I'm a huge country music fan. I grew up on Hank Williams, and I learned how to play guitar with Hank Williams and on records and stuff like that. And, I met a couple of guys. Mike Stewart was one of them, and Rex Weishart and Mike Edging. And we decided we're going to start a record company called Live Records. And so we also decided that I was going to be the talent, so to say, or
wait,
lack
that wasn't
of.
You. That wasn't. Wait. Well, no, mind blown.
I know what you're thinking. I know it's hard for you to accept it after all these years, but yeah, we came up with this whole idea that I was going to be the record. I was going to be the talent on the record. We created a name. It's a name that I thought of years and years and years ago called Michael Lee Austin. That was the name that I used. You can look it up online.
Name.
The perfect country western name. Yeah. Michael, because it's the most popular name for a boy. Lee, General Lee, of course. And then Austin, Texas. And we went down to the number of syllables. But I came up with this name years and years ago. And so it just happened to be that I could actually use this now. But we took that album that we took us months and months to create. I actually sang on it, just to clarify some things. But I actually sang on it. And then we promoted that album out. And all of a sudden, within 4 days, it was the number one, not just, it's the number one record on Amazon, first of all. But then on top of that, we promoted it, and it turned into the number 7th best-selling CD in the world. Not just in one category, but all categories. So that was pretty exciting.
That is a great deal of fun. All right, we got Frank Clark coming on. Hey, Frank, how you doing? Oh, he's getting his audio ready. We can't hear you yet, Frank. So figure out where you're. Nope. He's gonna have to okay. He's gonna try one more time. That's the beauty of technology. Is sometimes we're just.
How's that? Is that better?
Hey, Frank, say hi to Armin.
Hey, Armin, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, thanks.
What's on your mind?
I just came into this late, so I wanted to learn more about what Armin is teaching about. I saw your profile, internet marketing, so I followed you, but wanted to learn specifically, what are the topics? Is it the traffic generation, social media? You mentioned live streaming. What's your gig?
Yes.
Yeah, we actually talk about literally. I mean, I know you're going to think this is funny. Everything. So let me kind of give you an
milking
idea.
Cows, buying jewelry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Country music.
In fact, I have a student who's a farmer. Pretty interesting. He has a business that's doing multiple millions of dollars a year. And we actually taught him how to milk his cows dry, believe it or not, because he sold so much milk. It was a really kind of interesting story. But actually, where a lot of people specialize in a certain aspect, oddly enough, I can actually talk about almost any subject when it comes to internet marketing, because here's the difference between me and other marketers. Is that most marketers will outsource things to other people. For example, to this very day, I still do my own websites. To this very day, I do my own graphics. To this very day, I do my own copywriting. I edit my own videos and all those things. Not because I can't afford to do it or hire someone else, but I do it because, number one, a lot of it I enjoy, and some of it I think I can do it better than other people. But what I look at is what is the latest trends? What can I do most? And what can I teach people that's going to be most important to them? So, for example, I treat people as an individual. So, example, Frank, if I asked you the biggest question or the biggest problem that you have with your business, what would you say that is?
Well, I'm, learning about just how to be an online business and a brand. So I struggle a little bit with the technology, and I set out to, do everything myself as well, just so I could learn it on the fly. And I've finally reached a point where I need to outsource more of it. So I've just hired somebody to take over my website and redesign it for me as I.
So let me give you an example on that. First of all, doing it yourself, I'm going to tell you, do as I say, not as I do,
right?
Because it's cheaper than ever. I had to learn in 1996 where there was no one that you could outsource to. So I just was forced to kind of do it. But now today, there's a website I'll tell you guys about. It's called EasyOutsource.com. And the reason why I mention that is because there's no in-between person. You work with people from the Philippines, typically. They're all college educated, and they have all these degrees that they have on the site. And you can hire starting as little as $1.50 to maybe $10 or $15 an hour. But many of the things that people want to do, especially website design, is very, very inexpensive, like around $2-3 an hour.
Yeah, that's actually what I did. I'm using something called MrOutsource.com, and just started, a week ago really with them. And I've already been impressed by how quickly they respond and how professional they are and everything that they're doing. And I wish I'd hired them a year ago.
Right.
Well, it's kind of funny that you said that, Armin, because I've actually got a browser tab open where I've got 6 people applying to do some graphic design work for me, because you mentioned Easy Outsource, so I'm giving them a try. Yeah,
I mean, I hired, so we're doing a very big project, a shopping cart project, and we actually got our programmer actually on Easy Outsource that we do it. And the reason why it's different than a lot of the other places is you deal directly with the individuals rather than going through an outsourcing company per se, and that's why it's much, much less expensive. So
cool.
Something,
Frank,
something along that line.
Question, and we're going to bring Sherry in and see what she's got to ask of you.
Okay.
Well,
hey, Sherry.
Well, first off, hi, and thanks for having me on. And I'm sort of laughing to myself because my webmaster is Filipino, and she's in Denver.
Oh, which is so you got your Filipino. And you got Denver.
Just to let you know, I'm half Filipino.
Oh, okay.
So, all right. And if you want to, you can hire me on EasyOutsource.com.
Made a note. No, but I was really interested in your thinking process with the vacuum cleaners. And what popped into my head was, what was your first really big, after you moved on from the vacuum cleaners, what was your first really big venture when you said, wow, and what made you try it?
Okay, he can't talk about that one, but
the government,
the FBI was involved.
I'm just saying there's certain people got elected because of me.
Okay, then the second venture.
Well, what happened was is really interesting because I worked for Electrolux, just like I was saying. And then, we got a disagreement. We didn't agree. So I decided to move on. So I answered another ad in the paper. I figured I got the first job from an ad in the paper. I'll get the second job. Said the same thing, make this a great amount of money. Ambitious people wanted. I go to the interview. Turns out to be Kirby vacuum cleaners. So I worked for Kirby vacuum cleaners for another 2 or 3 years. And so then finally I move on, right? So I answer this ad. I figure if I want a better job, I will need a better newspaper. So I go to the Wall Street Journal this time, right?
Okay.
And it says, looking for ambitious people, looking for telecommunication sales reps. And I had no idea what this is, but I call up this guy and he asked me a question. He says, have you ever knocked on doors before? I said, why, yes, I have. And so he tells me he wants me to sell, listen to this, long distance service, door to door.
Okay.
And he faxed me 2 pieces of paper. One was a contract saying how much I got paid. And the second was a piece of paper to have people fill out. And that's the only training he gave me. And I started knocking on doors, selling long distance service. Hi, my name's Armin Moore, and I'm from Cherry Communications. And I'd like to switch slam. And everybody just slammed the door on me till I got to this one. Now, listen to this. This is a great story because I went to this I walked out my front door the next day and I got a clipboard. That was the first thing. I spent $1.55 buying a clipboard because I figured if you had a clipboard and a pen, you looked official. So, and I made a bunch of copies of this form that he gave me. So I went down the street in front of my house and I just started knocking on doors. And everyone said, slam, slam, slam. No one would let me in. So I get to the last house on that street. And I said, hi, my name's Armin Moore, and I'm from Cherry Communications. And, who do you use for your long distance service? And they said, well, we use MCI. I said, did you know that you're paying this much money with your line? No, I didn't. I said, well, we could actually save you this much money. And then I multiplied how much they were paying for not 1 month, but 1 year. And then took the 1 year, multiplied it by 3 years, and then showed them the savings that they would actually have. And I signed up the person. And so I signed up the next 6 people and then I quit for the day because I was, I spent a whole hour working. So I figured I was a little tired and I went home. but here's where this all makes sense though. So I did that for a couple of years and then I went ahead and I read this ad and I discovered that I could actually get paid residual income by selling long distance service. So I started this company called Global Telecom. And in 1995, and that was the first company. I was 25 years old at the time, and I had 2 partners. One lived in Biloxi, Mississippi, and one lived here in North Carolina. And the first 2 weeks of that company, we did $200,000 worth of business. Now, this is more money than I ever seen in my life. You could shake a stick at. We did $1.8 million in the first 10 months, and then I got an offer from a company called EqualNet in Houston, Texas, to buy us out. And now there are companies, Excel Communications, for example, at the time was scared because our rates were so low. They had actually corporate meetings with 18,000 people talking about my company at the time. So we had this really cool thing that we did, but I sold this company for, now here's the key. I want everyone to listen, stock in another company, in their company. The lesson is don't do that. Don't take stock for your company because I have a check that's sitting over on the other side of my room right now. And that check is worth a grand total of 1 cent. So all that stock that I traded my company for is now valued at 1 cent. But
that's why we call them penny stocks.
That is now, well, it wasn't at the time, but now it is. But yeah, it was, that was my first company. We brought it to a couple $1 million. And then after that, after I sold that company, that's when I started to figure out how to get on the internet.
Okay. Well, the only reason why I asked that is that I wanted to get a sense of your thinking, I guess, in terms of how your mind works, because it seems like whatever it is that you do, you quickly jump to the point of multiplication of effort.
You're right. And there's a method, right? There's a strategy that I call success leaves traces. Okay. And what we do is I look at the task that I want to accomplish. And then what I do is I reverse engineer it. So for example, if there's anything that you wanted to do, someone, chances are, has already done it to some degree. So what we do is we take it, and here's the end result. For example, let's say I wanted to make I wanted to make an iPhone. Okay, if I wanted to make an iPhone, well, I know that I can find out who makes the iPhone. I know the manufacturing company. I can look it up. It's public information that I can go to China, and I know the company that makes the iPhone. I also know the company that makes the glass, the Gorilla Glass that iPhone has. I also know that the operating system can be done, and you can have other people do this. So in other words, all these little pieces of the puzzle now, of course, the iPhone is kind of proprietary information, but the methods and the pieces of it individually are kind of all there. So, so that's kind of the whole process. Does that make sense?
Yes. You know, and it's sort of illuminating. And like I said, that little train of thought while we wait for Joel to come back. While that train of thought seems to sort of permeate your thinking, and I like that. So I'm not going to hog the seat.
Thanks, Sherry. Great to
speak. Thanks, Sherry. It's a great question.
Appreciate it. And let's welcome Vincent. What's up, Vince?
Hi, Joel. Armand. Yeah, I was wondering. I'm fine. How are you? I'm a bachelor media marketing and publishing from the Netherlands, and I'm also into the internet marketing business. I read a lot about media publishing. So I was wondering what kind of business, what kind of projects are you working on right now? And what is the future of business in the next 5 years?
Well, you know, I don't know. I know what I'm working on right now is I'm looking at more software as a service type products. So as an example, one of the things we recently launched was a help desk. And we're still in the process of actually launching it. But it's a help desk because it's a service that I think that most people need. It's quite honestly a very boring idea, but it's something that a lot of businesses have. And when you look at that, we have an autoresponder company that we have because it's a service that people need and people want, and something that once you start using, you don't go away. We're relaunching actually a hosting company as an example. And the reason why, again, when you think about it, once you have a hosting company or once you have your website hosted, the odds of you leaving are not very good unless the hosting company screws up in some way. So it's a long-term customer. Now, when I look at the internet, I think there's a lot of different things. One of the things is what we're using right now. When you look at it, the way people communicate.
The communication. This is opening a new world for a lot of people worldwide. People get into social media, connect with each other all over the world, and it brings people together. And I think, from my own opinion, I think the next generations are growing up with iPads, iPhones, and they come in contact with like-minded people at a very young age.
So the question, though, is how can you get in front of that growing crowd? You know, if you look at history, the people that were in front of the baby boom, as the baby boom market grew up, there was people that made millions of dollars, things from the very beginning, like baby food, as an example, to hula hoops, to cars, to retirement plans. As that market grew up, different people got in front of that bubble as it kind of came through and made fortunes. So if we know what the market kind of wants right now, the question is, how can we take advantage of it? Maybe is it technology? You know, for example, Joel does some things with apps. Maybe it's apps, but it's not just a product. Think of a process instead.
But is this app? I see a lot of self-made millionaire people preaching, or how do you call it? Broadcasting.
Does it work?
Is that a business on itself, or
what is it? Let me tell you this. I have a friend of mine. He's actually one of my students. You might have heard of one of the games that he's created. It's called Farmville. And the game Farmville, he works for Zynga. Any game that's ever been created with a "ville" at the end of it, he has created. And Zynga is a multi-billion-dollar company. So is there money in apps? I think Joel's made a couple bucks. I mean, am I right, Joel?
Yes, indeed. With farts. No less. Hey, Vince, thanks for your questions, man. Stick around. Love to keep you here on the list. And if anybody else has questions, apps are it. In fact, I'm going to tell you a funny story, Armin. In fact, I told people last night I wasn't going to reveal this little marketing plan before it actually went live, but it doesn't have, there's no harm. So I think I told you that for the first time in 5 years, we were updating iFart. And now it's a free app with in-app purchases. And this morning, sitting on my doorstep right now, waiting for the Postal Service to pick it up, is a box addressed to George Clooney. And that box contains a can of baked beans and a letter offering him $100 for one of his own fart sounds. And a press release is going to hit the national news wires tomorrow morning that says infamous iPhone application developer offers George Clooney $100 for his fart sound. So we'll see if it makes news this time.
But sometimes it's those crazy ideas that actually work. I knew a guy.
Think about the elements of it, right? You've got the big celebrity, you've got technology, you've got an app that everybody knows, and you've got an absurd offer.
Yeah. And, I knew a guy that was trying to get an interview with Bill Gates. And what he did was he just kept on sending postcards and postcards and postcards. It was like 30, 40, 50 postcards to Bill Gates. Never got the interview. But the point was he kept just trying until until they got bored or tired of it, I guess.
Well, yeah, it happens. Jackie says George Clooney burns $100 bills as Kindle. I understand it. That's what makes it absurd, is that we're offering him $100. The reason we're sending it to him, by the way, for those who don't know, is he was the subject of a Rolling Stone cover story in 2011. And in the article, in the 10-page interview, the one thing that stood out that the other publications used as a headline is that George Clooney has iFart on his phone. So that's why I'm sending it to him, because he's already a fan. And I think that's that's a lot of it. It's about creating marketing that is storytelling that other people will want to retell. Isn't that what viral marketing really is?
It is. I mean, think about what goes viral. You don't know. We don't know. We have no idea. If we knew, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We would just create these viral pieces. Odd thing is, I don't have a cat that's funny, and I personally don't want to exploit my daughter online. So,
right. Martin Jones had a question here. Let me see if I can back up and find it. Oh, he remember? He wants to know, do you remember the Kirby songs? There was actually a song book.
It was not just a song book. It was like they took every song that you could possibly imagine, like "Oh Susanna" and all these like classic campfire type songs. And then every morning you would actually walk in and you would sing these songs. A lot of times you would stand up on your chair and do these songs. Now here's the other thing though. What was cool about it is that once I was there for a while, every morning I'd have to lead the singing of this. But also at the same time, here's the other part, is I actually had to teach them. I had to teach other people how to sell.
Do you remember a song?
No, I don't. I tried not to remember them when I sang them, but we actually had books though that we had to read for the words. No, I don't remember the song. And
That's
if I
awesome.
did, I wouldn't tell you.
Frank Clark notes that Lorne Michaels once offered the Beatles $2,000 in cash, $500 per Beatle, if they'd reunite on Saturday Night Live. I remember that happening and thinking, it's funny, what a great prank. And later on, Paul and John were actually in New York City. Paul was visiting John in his apartment, and they actually thought about coming down to the studio to do it, and they didn't, which is unfortunate, because it would have been awesome. Absolutely hilarious. I'm with Armin Morin here on the Joel Comm Show, and if you have a question you want to ask an internet millionaire, absolutely anything, this is your opportunity to do so. Do it. So, speaking of apps, have you ever created an iPhone application?
No. I've taught some people how to make like Google play apps, just because some people want to know how to do it, and it's actually pretty simple. But personally, I've never actually created an app. I have some ideas. There's an app that I have. I call it I forget what Dots. That's what I called it. And what it is, it's just a dot appears on the screen, and it's like whack-a-mole, but with dots. A dot appears and you just whack it, and you just keep on doing it, and it gets faster as it progresses, and you have to keep on trying to tap it. And that's my whole idea.
That's right. So Mr. Millionaires D says, how might someone go from someone with a millionaire dream to living a millionaire life with minimal liquid assets for outsourcing? So basically, I got nothing and I want to be wealthy. How do I do it?
Yeah, it's the immortal question, isn't it? I think what it is, it starts off with a basic concept. It starts not with what you want, but with what your audience want. What does the market want? Choose your audience, and don't tell me, well, I'm going to market to everybody, because that doesn't work. What we want to do is we want to market to people that want something. And so you need to find out a market that has a desire for something that you can have and something that you can deliver. Could be a product, could be a service, but don't just think in terms of product wise, because if you think in terms of just a product, then that's all it's ever going to be is a product. You're not going to actually have a business in that realm. So you need to think a little bit more long-term. That's why I like the idea of some type of a service, especially if I can have software as a service, because it's not me personally involved with it, and it's rather scalable.
Well, and you can sell it as a business. That's the thing. It's not dependent on you. Brian Basilico, it's all about the bacon. How are you, brother?
What's up, man? Hey, I finally got Minicam. I could finally figure it out that the only way I could get the darn thing to work is by going into Firefox, and it does work on a Mac. So,
but you realize you're not doing widescreen, and it should be doing that on Minicam, so you could take a look at that. Do you know Armin, Brian?
I don't know Armin, but man, I've been following you for years, and love your stuff, love your shirt, and love your suit if you had one.
And his red bow tie. Just imagine it.
I can. So here's my question for you. Can you give me one aha moment that stands out in your career that said, man, this all of a sudden just clicked and it just made sense and really kind of propelled you to where you're at?
One aha moment.
I'll tell you. When his wife said, would you go make some money?
I'll take 25, but I don't think we have enough time.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about my wife after, because it was kind of funny. She found, I'll tell you after. But anyway, one aha moment. I think, I'll tell you one aha moment that I had the moment that I figured out how to write a sales letter. So I had my first, what I would call real internet product, where I was trying to write this ebook. It was the very first ebook I ever wrote, because I just got slammed for making too much money, and they took my merchant account away. And this was way, way early on, before there was anything. I did like $4 million in 12 weeks, and they shut down my merchant account. So now I'm writing this ebook on how to process credit cards online without a merchant account. That was my whole idea. But the aha moment that came to me when it struck me, that made sales letter writing instant piece of cake for me, was when I realized that instead of me writing this, if I just imagined that I was actually having a conversation across the person, because remember, the story I just told was the fact that I sold vacuum cleaners door to door. I could talk to people. I could sell to people. And when I realized it was just a matter of me literally imagining someone across the table from me, what would I say to that person? Then all of a sudden, sales letter writing became piece of cake. I've always written my own sales letters, except for two. I think two I hired people, Michael Fortin and one Ray Edwards. That was it. But the rest I wrote myself. But that moment, I figured out it's just a conversation. Is what would you say to a person sitting across the table from you, and how would you say it to them in order to get them to buy what you have? And if you can have that mental conversation as if that was real, then everything else is a piece of cake. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Oh, it totally makes sense. Hey, Joel,
do you do podcast interviews?
What was that?
Do you grant podcast interviews?
Yeah, I do interviews all the time.
So connect with Brian. He does a really cool show, the Bacon Podcast.
Awesome. Just shoot us an email, man.
I will, man. Problem. I'll shoot you an email. Thank you so much. Hey, Joel, can I post the same question to you, man? Did you have something that was like an aha moment for you?
I think it was when he first came to my seminar. That's when he kind of all came together for him.
10 years after I started doing business online. By the way, I just heard the postman at my door, which means the package is now on its way to George Clooney. I think my first aha moment came, ka-ching, baby. In 1996, I had my site up for a year and was struggling to make a go of it with advertising. It was just about out of money. And I got an email out of the blue from this guy in Washington State who was representing a Japanese multimedia conglomerate that I had never heard of. And they wanted to pay me to license content I had been creating for that last year and localize it into Japanese. And, being a salesman, you learn that when somebody starts offering you something, you just shut up. You don't open your mouth. And I was waiting for them to, say, we'll give you a couple $100 or so each month for it. And instead, they ended up offering me $7,500 a month to take my content. And then basically I ended up putting my stuff on a zip drive once a month and FedExing it to Japan. It took me about 5 hours of work a month. And they were sending me this check. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be big. If I'm doing one of the first licensing deals to a foreign company in 1996, I think I'm onto something. So it was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Hey, great to see you, Brian. And
thanks, man.
Armin, what's the best way for him to connect with you?
Just send an email or at support@arminwarren.com and they'll put it through to me.
Will do, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate always getting to talk to you, and this time not just benefiting from our.
Let me tell you my story about my wife. I was going to tell you about.
Oh, right? Okay, go ahead. This is about Mariana.
Yeah, my wife Mariana, who runs everything on the back end of my company and everything else. So when we first met, I was already doing stuff on the internet. And in fact, she met me during the time that I was doing this launch of these bookmarks that I was selling. And now, again, this was way before anyone even remotely thought of ever doing a product launch or anything like that. I put up these bookmarks I collected for free into a membership site, and I sold them for $110 a pop. And what happened was people started buying them left and right. And we sold 35,000 people in 12 weeks, my bookmarks. All in all, I did $4.2 million. Now, during this, right now, I'd met my wife during this process happening. Okay. Now, here's the funny part. So first of all, the first thing she brings me, and I had an office at the time. She brings me to my office, and I said, oh my gosh, I just made $250,000 last night. And she thinks I am so full of crap. I mean, she just she's just like, oh yeah, whatever. And she just kind of blows it off. And so no big deal. But every time we go out, I'd go into my closet and I'd come back out with money. Right. Well, she finally, I showed her what I was doing. I had this little box and I had $100,000 in cash. Again, you gotta remember, I'm a young guy at the time. Right. I have $100,000 in cash and $100 bills. She thinks that she didn't know what to think at first. She thought I was like dealing drugs or something, because I have all this cash. And I just thought, well, if something ever goes wrong, I got cash on hand to deal with it. Just kind of like my little backup plan, and plus my couple bucks if I need to go out. So that's my Mariana story.
If you want to go to Vegas. So you heard it here first, folks. Armin makes money coming out of the closet. So hey, dude, you need to update your profile picture on Facebook. I saw you uploaded a new cover today, which is very reminiscent of Windows. I like it. It's got a classic feel to it. But your profile photo.
I'm actually doing that this week. Honest to God, we literally at 1:00 this afternoon. I had my team meeting, and one of the things that we talked about was taking new photos, because on one, I got photos that are more recent, but it has me with a beard. I've got, that photo, which is like, who knows how old that
12 years old.
Oh, at least, if not more. It's got to be more. I think it's got to be more. I think it's like 15 years old. It's 50. It is. Awesome. It's like almost 15 years old, because I got, when I got it, I got it the year after I got married. So it's almost 15 years old.
It's like Dorian Gray. So I wish we could stick around. I want to respect your time, and I've got an appointment I need to get to at the top of the hour. But before I go, since this is your first blab, do you have any questions about the interface or the functionality here?
Yeah.
And ask me.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've got these, I have a pretty good idea what most of this stuff is. We've got, the messages on the right. I can see people posting that. Now, are those messages on the right-hand side? Those are things that people are posting to the system here, or are those tweets?
They're just a chat room here. Now, when they click the tell a little bird or tell your friends, which they just changed from tell your aunt, I'm glad for that. Then you're seeing when they end up posting to their connected accounts.
I got it. And so now when now let's say when we're done all of this, it automatically records.
So archive. The host, of which now we're able to make people co-hosts, has control. You can see up there, it says recording, the red light's on, and it says pause recording. So if I stop recording, that's when it'll end. Now I can start it again and it'll pick up. When the blab is over, it'll take whenever I recorded and it'll instantly say, do you want to upload this to YouTube? And whether I do or not, in just a couple minutes, I'll get an email from Blab with links to both the MP3 audio and the MP4 video, which I can then download.
So are you taking the audio and you putting it up as a podcast somewhere?
Correct. I'll take the audio.
Or are you taking the video and uploading it as a podcast?
Well, I'm uploading the video to YouTube and then embedding it on my blog as a blog entry. I'm uploading the audio to the Joel Comm Show. Probably what I'll do is I'll put some music bumper before and after it and upload it so that there's content for people that subscribe to my podcast. And then you can see up top the 430 that we currently see are the total number of people that have come through in the time we've been here, and the number that keeps changing are people actually watching and joining us right now, either on the web or via the iOS app. There's no Android app, but the functionality of the Blab app on your iPhone is pretty cool, so you can blab from anywhere.
So I have a question then. So now that you've got this whole Blab thing going on and everything else, and you're a single man and
where's this
traveling
going?
around the world. So do you use this for like dating and stuff? Is this your own personal this I'm Joel Comm and I like long walks on the beaches and everything like that? Is that what you do?
Well, I just want you to notice that since you've mentioned that, the viewer count has gone up. So
it has gone up. See that?
I'll let that speak for itself. I think this is a great content creation platform. I use Blab for a few different things. Yeah. One are for these types of interviews, and I've probably done about 15 of them so far. And then I'm
just going to tell you though, seriously, it's actually not as bad as I thought. And what I mean that in a good way. And what I mean is, I thought that having this posting these messages over on the right would actually be extremely distracting.
Mm-hmm. It's done well. And to type a question, somebody types /Q followed by their question, and that's when it shows up with the little blue Q circle there. And they say always go out on top, and we've got more people watching right now than we have the whole show. But I need to go, and I want to thank you for joining me. Armin, are you going to do a blab of your own?
I do have a Blab account, and what we might do is do Blab interviews for our Learn University event.
That's a really good idea. In fact, I brought Michael Stelzner from Social Media Examiner to Blab, and he's doing a weekly social media roundup show. I can't remember what day of the week it is, but they do an hour talk about the latest with social media. And he's told me that they have been selling tickets to Social Media Marketing World as a result of having these Blabs. So I think that's pretty cool. Armin, people can find you at arminmorin.com, right?
arminmorin.com. You'll see the latest things that we're doing, latest happenings going on.
And I'm the only person in the world that actually pronounces his name correctly. Yeah, everybody else is like Armand Morin.
Hey, yeah. I bought the domain Designs by Armand, and I honestly, talking about t-shirts, I ordered a t-shirt. I'm going to sell t-shirts that just have my name Armand on it. And I actually ordered them like an hour ago, a little over an hour ago.
You need designer ties too. Hey guys, watch for future episodes. Make sure you follow both myself and Armand here, and also follow me on Periscope at JoelCom, where I do my top 5 scope broadcasts, ideally 5 days a week. All right, Armand, thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Joe.
And everybody else out there, you know what to do. Do good stuff.